All right, so we are here with Frank Belsey. He's a licensed marriage and family therapist and a GPS therapist. Just excited to chat with you today, Frank.
Sure,
Love to get to know a little bit about you
sure.
and help anybody that might be looking for a therapist to see maybe kind of what it might be like to work with you, kind of what you're like. So, something that I think a lot of people get interested in is why people get into this field. It's kind of a strange field, and a lot of times as men, we kind of get this side eye look like, you're a
Mhm.
therapist? What?
Yes.
So I wonder if you could talk to us a little bit today about why did you become a therapist in the first place? What got you into this field?
Okay. Yeah, no, that's a good question. Yeah, it's definitely true. The number of men compared to women is, yes, definitely get the looks. Actually, I was one of those guys. I got good grades in high school, graduated high school. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I went to like 2 years of junior college, and I actually just kind of dropped out. I stopped going. And I didn't go back to school till I was probably 32 years old. So from 20 to 32, I just did odd jobs, waiting tables, construction, whatever it was. And it was actually my wife was like, you need to figure out something. And so she should actually suggested becoming an instructional assistant in a special education class. My wife teaches special education. I was like, okay, I'll try that out. And I loved it. I loved helping the kids. Um, there was just something about it. And I was like, after about a year of doing that, I realized in some capacity, I want to help people. I didn't know what
Hmm.
it was yet. So I went back to school, I got my AA. And then my plan was, so like I say, once again, I was like 32 when I went back.
Yeah.
Um, so my plan was, I thought maybe I'll be like a school counselor. So I got my bachelor's degree in psychology. And it was actually my wife is the one that brought up MFT. I didn't know what MFT stood for. And she had some of her coworkers who were MFTs working at the school district. And she's like, I think you would like that more. It's not just doing the academic counseling, but you're helping the kids, work through stuff. And I was like, you know what? That does kind of sound better. So thankfully she brought that up because I would never even have thought of that. So
It's
then
good to have a wise partner in life, right?
100%,
I always tell
100%.
people my wife is my wise counsel in life.
Oh no, 100%. She's kept me grounded. And so once again, this was her idea. She thought I would really enjoy this,
Hmm.
and so
It
then,
sounds like she was right.
and she 100% was
Yeah.
right. And
So
so,
Frank, if I could pause you there, you said MFT, and some people watching this might not have any idea what that means. You want to explain a little bit what that means and kind of how that relates to what you do?
MFT was she thought I would get a master's degree in marriage and family therapy. So I started looking up marriage and family therapy programs, and I went to a couple orientations. I found out kind of what marriage and family therapy entailed. So it was when I was looking it up, I realized, it offered jobs in multiple varieties. You could do private practice counseling, you could work in hospitals, you could work in jails, you could work for schools. I mean, there's multiple settings. And that's when I thought, okay, this is for me. This is for me.
Yeah. And
So I
you've done a
kind of,
lot of work in schools, right?
yes, yes. So yeah, I currently work at a school. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So once I found the right program for me, and that was the thing. I had to find what I was looking for, so to speak. Because I say for so many
Yeah.
years, I know what I wanted to do. So all my 20s just kind of went through the motions of life. I made some money,
Hmm.
whatever, never really felt fulfilled. And once it was where I figured out what I wanted to do, from there it was just
Yeah.
ready to go, ready to
You
go.
know, I wonder, Frank, if that's something that some of the people that you work with, whether they're kids, young adults, something like that, just kind of based on where you said you've worked in the past, I wonder if that's something that they can relate to, or if you even maybe share that with your clients
Oh, no,
sometimes.
no, 100%. I tell my kids because I work with a lot of high school kids right now, and they're trying to figure out life and figure out things. And I was like, man, I was there too. I say I graduated high school. I had almost, I had almost a 4.0, but I could have gone and done something, but I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Hmm.
And so I try to tell them, you don't have to find your path at 18 or 17 or 16. You might be 30, like myself, or 32, and but when the time comes, man, you'll know it. You'll know it.
Hmm.
So Yeah, I always tell my story. I always tell my story to the kids.
Okay.
Definitely.
Yeah, I know some therapists tend to be pretty keep things close to the vest, and I think that works for a lot of situations because we don't want to make it about us.
Sure.
But I think especially if you've got kind of a cool story like that, where it's like maybe you can relate to your clients in a certain way, and especially if
Definitely.
they're kind of trying to find their path, and you've shared that struggle, I think that can be helpful. So that's pretty cool.
And it relates to the, to the young adults too. Even in
Hmm.
college, people are still trying to figure out what they want to do,
Hmm.
and I think there's some statistic of people change a lot of times. They multiple majors while they're in college trying to find their path,
Hmm.
and it's along the same kind of idea. You don't know what you want to do, definitely, and then
Hmm.
something happens and you kind of find what you need.
Yeah. Frank, could you talk a little bit about like who is it that you just love working with? Like you wake up in the morning, you think, man, I can't wait to do this kind of work today. What is it that gets you going about your practice?
Sure, sure. Over the years, I've had the opportunity to work with multiple populations in multiple settings, and it was, I enjoyed it all, and it was all great experience. But really, for me right now, it's really that adolescent, young adult age. I think that there's so much going on. The high school kids, their their bodies changing. They're having their first relationships. They're having their stresses of trying to figure out colleges or whatever it may be, and they're not an adult yet, but they're not a little kid anymore, and they're kind of in that kind of gray area, trying to figure out. They have so much going on, and for some reason, I'm able to I listen to the story that they tell me, and I'm able to kind of help them, just kind of give alternative, ideas of what's going on, and let them know what they're going through is okay and it's normal, and we all go through that. And that also relates to, like I say, even young adults, even in their 20s, they're trying to figure out what's going on. They have relationship problems. They're trying to figure out their life as well, and that can also relate to couples as well. So it kind of, I realized that a lot of the struggles that, say, adolescents have, young adults have as well. Maybe different. Issue itself is kind of the struggle is the same, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so it's relatable all the way up. But I like that high school age to kind of get them before they go off into their next phase, and because
Mhm.
there's so much going on, so much
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah, I think a lot of therapy tends to be about maybe a couple major things, and
Mhm.
a couple that stand out to me are grief. I feel like almost all therapy is grief in some way. Like
Sure.
we're grieving a loss of a person sometimes, or maybe a job, a loss of innocence, a loss of the childhood we thought we were going to have, or something like
Sure.
that, a relationship we thought we might have. But then there are all these also these transition points that a lot of people come in with. And you
Yes.
mentioned couples. I mean, a lot of times couples are transitioning into a more serious stage, or sometimes transitioning out of the relationship and they
Mhm.
need help with that.
Yes.
Transitioning from maybe young adulthood to parenting, and all of a sudden you've got
Yes.
this new responsibility, right? So I love that idea of transition that you bring up, and I think that there's probably
Yes.
a lot of people that could connect with that. Could you talk for a minute about what is it that makes you so passionate about working with young adults?
I think for me, it was I wish I had someone to talk to when I was a young adult.
Mm,
And I obviously I grew up at a different time and a different era, whether, we didn't have high school therapists, and even, and obviously we know therapies for different cultures, taboo for different cultures, but even myself, I never even knew what therapy was when I was in high school. No one ever brought that up. And I think I went through things that I wish it had been nice to have someone to talk to,
mhm.
and
Yeah.
whether I was a therapist or a trusted adult or whatever it was, and I didn't have that, and I think I want to be that person they feel safe talking to. And I realize there's so many people, especially the adolescents, they just want someone to talk to,
Mhm.
someone to listen to them, validate what they're going through, and give a different perspective of what they're going through. And I say, those are things that I wish I could have had back when
Mhm.
I was in high school.
Yeah.
And
So not somebody to tell you what to do, but just to kind
100%.
of help you figure it out for yourself,
Yes.
so maybe you can feel good about the decision later because it was yours.
Yes, no, 100%. Yeah, that's why I do the kids. I never tell them you should do this, this, this.
Yeah.
I just bring up alternate scenarios or alternate ideas, stuff that they never thought about, and then they make the decision.
Right.
Yeah. So I say that to me that age is so important, because I say you're old enough to make decisions on your own and make certain decisions, but you don't have so much life experiences yet in that kind of like late
Yeah.
teen time, and I say, I just try to, hey, you ever thought about this? Hey, you ever look at it this way? And they're like, oh my gosh, I never even thought about that. And then we go from there, and in the end, I still let them make their decisions, but let me see, there's other choices as well.
Yeah. A guide, but you're not in charge of their life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, in a minute, I want to ask you about maybe any kind of hidden talents or something, just maybe something that people might find fun to know. But before we jump into that,
Sure.
we've talked a lot about kind of that transitional age youth, kind of that, I don't know, 14 to 28 kind of age, something in that range. Who else have you had some experience working with that you enjoy working with? I mean, I know that you don't just enjoy working with kids and teens and young adults, but who else might be somebody that you'd enjoy working with?
I did have the opportunity to work with couples as well. That was a few years ago, but I did have the opportunity to. And I think for in that time, it's just I enjoy. There's always two sides to the story, and the couples counseling, and people start off couples and they really want each person in the relationship want you to agree with them, and I love the opportunity to kind of let's look at this. Let's look at this. You think about this. You think about this, and so many problems in relationships are, there's things that you're not going to be able to change. There are everyday issues that you just might not agree on, but you're not going to change someone's belief or how they, how they feel about something. But let's see how we can work together with that kind of thing. It's kind of like someone being a Angels fan and someone being a Dodgers fan. I can't make you an Angels fan or you a Dodgers fan, but let's see how we can work together. That was very broad, but kind of like that idea. We have problems like that I'm not going to change how you feel, but let's see how you can relate to each other though.
Yeah, I think so much of what we do is help people to live in tension. I do a lot of couples work too. And I think like you, I took a little break from it for a while, but when I came back to it, it's really just one of those passions of mine.
Yes.
And I'm grateful that there are people like you that really just get out of bed in the morning to work with that TAE population, because it seems like a great fit for you. And couples has become something that I've really focused on a lot in the last several years. But yeah, I love that idea of helping people live in tension, because the person you married isn't the person that they're going to be 10 years from now, and hopefully that's because you're growing together.
And that's one of the things is people will say when we met at 22 and I knew they were the one. They might not be the one at 42 and 5 kids later, or financial stresses, and I mean, I believe in love, but it's like what you said perfectly. The person you married at 25, they're going to be different at 35 and 45 and 55. And you have to be able to go along with that as well, because you're going to change too,
Yep. So, we get a little more gray in our beard, don't we?
Oh gosh, man, 100%. I when I was married, it was all dark. It matched my shirt. But,
was that the marriage or the kids? No, don't answer that.
I say it was hereditary, but it wasn't.
There you go. I like it. Yeah. All right. Well,
going back
go ahead. Yeah.
Well, so what you said was the job we have. Once I became a therapist, I had so many jobs where I woke up in the morning oh my God, I don't want to go today. I don't want to go today. I don't want to deal with it. I've never had one day of that being a therapist. I've never had one day not wanting to wake up and go to work, and that was, for myself, that was huge, and I say so many years I had those jobs, just dreaded going to work. And this was the first job. And that's why I knew this was a job for me, man. I woke up each morning, let's go, and that felt so good.
And now you get to help other people find that, which is pretty
100%, 100%.
Yeah. So I love what we do.
Yes.
Well, I wonder if we could shift here and do a total 180 and just have a little fun for a minute. Okay. What is something that maybe you don't share with all your clients, but maybe you don't mind sharing a little bit about here? Just something, I don't know if there's a weird skill or a hobby or something unusual that might be fun for people to know about you.
It's not so much, I think weird, but I actually enjoy gardening and landscaping.
All right.
Me and my wife have owned like 3 houses, and all 3 houses, I kind of designed the yard. It was funny. It's a great kind of metaphor for life. For so many times, I would buy the prettiest plants from Home Depot, and I would plant them, and I didn't realize that some need to be in the sun, some need to be in the shade. And I bought them strictly on how they looked, and so it took me years to realize these are seasonal, these are perennial, these need to be in the sun 6 hours. But it was really a metaphor for my life. You make the mistakes, you learn from it, and you realize how things need to grow. So yeah, I've always enjoyed that. That's been very, very I mean, I hate picking the weeds, but I enjoy going out there and looking how
If you didn't, I might be concerned about you a little
bit. Even though now I have the kids do it, but I do it too. But like, I love going out there and design, this tree with this plant and put a little color right here. And yeah, and it's therapeutic, but I enjoy it. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's great. I'm sitting here and I'm wondering, I love sports, and I don't tend to gamble much on sports, but if I were a betting man, I would bet that not a lot of people would put that as top 3 hobbies for you.
I know. And people don't see that. Yes, 100%.
Yep. Well, last question here for you. I'm always curious, what's something that has come up a lot in your work? Whether it's, I don't know about you as a therapist, but I'm not huge on advice. There's that the phrase like, give somebody a fish and they eat for a day, teach them to fish and they eat for a lifetime, right? So I'm not huge on advice. So maybe that's not the best word here, but what's kind of a bit of wisdom you've gained in your experiences with your clients over the years here, something that maybe has come up a lot for people that maybe just might resonate with somebody who's watching this?
Yeah, one thing I tell people is that, never feel embarrassed or guilty about trying to prioritize your emotional well-being. Some people just like, whether it's culture or whatever it may be, never feel, that's a huge thing. And another thing I tell people too is like, the best accomplishment is when you finally decide to try therapy, try something. You can't accomplish anything until you try it. And I let them know that the first step, you calling me or you contacting us, that's already a huge first step. Like, you've already got the hard part done. Me and you talking, that's easy. But the fact that you've decided to make that's the hardest step to make, is emailing us or calling us or reaching out to even anybody else. That doesn't be us, for any kind of help. You've already accomplished the biggest step. Is just you decided to try it. And that's what I always say. And I say, don't ever feel guilty or upset about prioritizing your emotional well-being. And I let them know that, like, you've already accomplished the hardest step by contacting me.
So I feel like I have to follow up on something now, just based on kind of who you tend to work with, and you've worked in schools, and I have to imagine you get some pretty tough customers. Maybe some kids, maybe some young people, some young men perhaps, that a little harder on the outside, tough nuts to crack, or whatever you want to call it, and maybe they haven't wanted to talk to somebody before, or they're just, this isn't for me, right? I'm not talking to you. Who are you? Right. Can you maybe just talk a little bit about, I'm assuming you've had some experiences like that just based on other folks I've talked with, but how has that gone? I mean, you said it's easy to talk to me. Have you found that to be true with even some of those people who maybe just on the outside, it's like,
well, I think one
not
thing
interested.
Once I realized that's how the kid's going to be, we might have a couple of times meeting where we're just talking about random stuff. It could be sports. It could be girls. I'm not trying to get them coping skills or tell me about your life.
Not trying to fix them.
100%. Let's just talk, and so we could talk about, I could talk about high school parties, I could talk about anything like that. And once they realize I'm not this person, like you said, trying to change them. I'm not trying to point out all the things they're doing wrong. We're just talking. And from that, they obviously, like you said, some are more difficult than others, but usually after a few times talking to me, they feel more comfortable, or they might be the first half of the session be shut off, and then all of a sudden they'll give me something because we're just talking, and they might just say something that they don't even think about, but I'm able to use that in a therapeutic way for them. So
because you're actually listening.
Yes. And so I say, I don't come off as this person. Listen to what I say. This is what we're gonna do. You talk to me. I take what you give me, and I figure out how to work that into what's going on. And so I say, you're right. Some kids do take a little while, or even some adults as well. It takes a few, but I find it, I say, let's just talk. I'm here, and then we'll go from there. We'll go from there. So, but eventually I feel like I present as someone who's truly listening, truly empathetic. I do want to hear what you have to say, and I do really want to help you. And I think eventually, I think I present that way, and eventually people kind of like, okay, I can talk to this guy.
He actually might care about me.
He actually might care. Now,
Yeah,
and as you said, that might be this first session, second session, third session, whatever it takes.
I guess the point is that you care in all of those sessions, and sometimes it takes a while for folks to figure that part out.
100%.
All right. Too good to be true. It probably feels like sometimes for some folks.
Exactly.
Somebody actually cares and listens.
Mm-hmm.
Well, good. Well, thanks, Frank. I appreciate the time. I hope that's helpful, for anybody here watching. If you're interested in talking to Frank, give him a call, shoot him an email, and, see about what next steps might look like. But thanks again, Frank, for your time.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.